Hello and welcome to Sheila Lives Out Loud. My name is Sheila Mwaniga and I'm super thrilled and glad that you're on this channel. As always, I hope you're staying safe. I hope you're staying sane. Please click subscribe and hit notifications so you never miss an episode when we upload, and we do that every Monday. Now, in this COVID season, we're doing our very best to keep you informed, to keep you educated, to keep you a little bit entertained with relevant information that's going to help us make it through this COVID pandemic. And joining me for a conversation on what happens next is Dr. Simon Kigondu, the Secretary General of the Kenya Medical Association, and one of my very good friends. Dr. Terry, good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
It's so good to see you and to catch up with you. I think right from the get-go, you were the first person that I've talked to and have walked with in understanding what's happening with this season, with the coronavirus, with COVID-19. Thank you so much for being there to share your information and knowledge with us.
You're welcome.
We are very, very grateful. But I can't help but think the events of the past week, with a lot of the counties that were on lockdown opening up, we're all set to see a new wave of new numbers. Some of them will understand, many of them truly we won't. But I remember in March, you being very clear in telling us that two things are going to happen. The first thing is infections, which have been brought into the country. And the next phase from there will be community transmissions. And I do believe that is where we find ourselves now. Help us understand what that means for anyone who's just thinking, okay, so
COVID-19, as we said, is now a pandemic. A pandemic would mean that it is in most parts of the world. And as we said earlier, it came through travel. And now it is a family, a community transmitted diseases. And hence, we are preparing all our counties to handle any COVID-19 related issues. And earlier on, we were trying to prevent it from actually becoming a community spread through the shutdowns, curfew restrictions, but we were not successful, although we actually slowed down the transmission with some of the steps that have been put in terms of limitations, inter-county travel limitations, and the advice that had been given by the Ministry of Health on the usual issues of washing hands, avoiding unnecessary travel, using soap and water or sanitizer where possible, and wearing masks. And that is where we are. So at the current moment, we are having community spread of the COVID-19, and we are taking measures appropriately.
Yes. Okay. Now, over the past week, I have seen a lot of conversation online from Kenyans and everybody, pretty much people asking. In March, we had very few cases, and so we had the limited movement. But now the counties, the lockdown is gone. Yes, the curfew is still in place. But how do we justify opening everything up? Yet our numbers and our cases, the number of people who are testing positive is far greater now than it was in March. Are we not setting ourselves up for disaster? Or is this what the natural progression should be?
Yeah. So when curfews and restrictions of movement were imposed, the end result was not that the number of COVID-19 cases would reduce. We actually project that these cases would increase. The aims of doing what was done was initially at that time to stop the rapid spread of the virus so as to avoid overwhelming the health system. The reason for closure was that in that space of time, we were meant to set up systems that would actually prepare us to handle a surge of cases. And on the health aspect, we know that what is required of health aspects of COVID-19, and it was during this period that both the county and national governments and other people, including private hospitals, were supposed to set up a system that should there be an increase in number of COVID-19 cases, which require medical attention, then we would be ready for that. Some of the measures that were to be put in place include upgrading infrastructure, like for instance, trying to see if we can have increase in critical care units, increasing the human resources for health, the personnel. Ideally, the health system by now should have employed more doctors, more nurses, more clinical officers, and other people in the health sector who are necessary for managing the complications, so to speak, of health. So the aim of closure is actually to prepare everyone. For instance, even in your workplace, the aim of closure is to ensure that the infrastructure is set up such that when people come back to work, then the infrastructure allows for washing hands with soap and water at the door, for instance. Desks are 1 meter apart. There is sanitizer in place. People have masks available, and that is the reason, because we know that COVID-19 is here to stay. So it is for all of us, starting from the government to the individuals, to actually prepare. It was this time that we were supposed to prepare.
Supposed to be preparing and to get ready for a new normal again. Yeah. I remember yesterday's newspaper. The headline, of course, is quite huge, because what we're finding out is, out of all our counties, probably only about 22 or 23 have actually put in place mechanisms within their health sectors to have a certain allocation for beds for patients who will be looking for help. And I think there's an article that stated quite a number of these counties are still not prepared. What is the problem? What is going wrong here? Because we've been close to 6 months of preparation, yet we're not quite where we should be.
Yeah. So the state of preparedness of not only the counties, but everyone should be measured on a checklist. The Kenya Medical Association is represented in the National COVID Task Force at various levels. One of the committees in which we are represented by the president of Kenya Medical Association, Dr. Jacqueline Kitulu, is what is called the Capacity Committee. The Capacity Committee has now been set up to actually go around the counties to use a checklist to see whether the counties are adhering to the preparedness protocols that have been designed for them. So this is one of the ways in which to see whether counties are prepared. So various counties would be prepared at different levels. For instance, you would have a county, for instance, which has built an ICU. For instance, Moranga is one that has built an ICU. So in terms of infrastructure, that would be a tick. But we want to see, does the ICU have the necessary health personnel? So that's another checklist. So when you're checking about preparedness of counties, then you're doing a checklist. Yeah. Yes, they have hospitals, they have human resources available, they have pharmaceuticals, they are following the protocols that have been drawn. Yes. So various counties are at various levels. Our job as citizens and health workers is to ensure that wherever we feel that the counties are not ready, then we give our input as to what needs to be done. Yeah. So various counties are at various levels of, and this is being checked from a national level and a county level.
Okay, so we shouldn't, as a people, panic. Things are moving. It might be a question of pace, but it's not a cause for alarm at this stage. Okay, I'd like us to now, train our sights to a more difficult subject. Last week we saw the death of one of our healthcare workers, and it was truly a sad day for the medical fraternity. I got to find out about it because I follow you, so I heard about it first from your feeds. I think what we all now begin to start understanding is it's not about the person with the strongest immune system. It's about exposure, and we have to begin to limit exposure. And the people in the front line, I get it from everything you've shared with me in the past, is that it's about keeping frontline healthcare workers safe? Because you are the ones who are the most exposed. Help us understand that, and let's talk about this wonderful colleague that sadly has now fallen.
Oh, yeah. As we had earlier, COVID-19 does not kill you per se as COVID-19. A lot of the studies have come up to show that COVID-19 is indeed presents with flu-like symptoms where you get a dry throat irritation and you may get a dry cough. And when it spreads now to the lungs, you may get a viral pneumonia. So what has been shown is that those who get COVID-19 and may have another underlying condition and of worrying trends is diabetes or any other thing that may be at that particular time causing a problem, that may lead to severe disease and can lead to death. Yeah. And therefore, the reason for majority of the people, as we say, will be have no signs and symptoms, or may have that small flu but now when it comes to those who have some other issues, for instance, it has been noted scientifically that they may get severe disease and may require a critical care, may die, and therefore that is all the aim. So we need to identify those people who specifically have comorbid issues, and those are big words that but in now the public, watu ambao wana ugonjwa wa sukari, for instance, diabetes, or wana ugonjwa wa moyo, heart disease, for instance. Those ones, it seems that if they get the illness, then that's in the community. Now, in terms of the health workers, now that sort of opened up, the fact that they see a lot of patients who may be unwell and ill, then maybe their dose, for instance, is higher. You see a lot of people with that and you may get COVID. So what we were saying is that now we are the last line of defense in that we are the ones now likely to actually get people coming to hospital with COVID, and they're likely to get it, and you can also transmit it to the families. And this is, for instance, one of the scenarios that happened to one of our gynecologists, she's my colleague and friend. I know her personally, Dr. Doreen Lugaliki-Adisa, and she was in her line of duty as a gynecologist to see a lot of women, of course, and pregnancy and delivery and women issues do not end. So we keep saying. And she actually, as a result of that, she may have contracted COVID-19, and that led to a series of events that led to her demise. And that is one of the dangers that we want to illustrate, that even as the rest of the population may not be in too much of trouble, the healthcare workers who are the ones likely to get COVID-19, and it is the one likely to affect them. In the healthcare industry, we have a lot of people with comorbid conditions. And one of the recommendations that given at the Human Resources Committee is that people with comorbid maybe need to be moved out of the line of duty, so to speak, and do other non-COVID duties. Unfortunately, now even we don't know what is called. Previously, we knew that isolation unit, which has COVID, that's the COVID duty. But you can see even when you're seeing expectant mothers, they may have COVID and they may be asymptomatic and you may contract it and it can cause problems. So this is what we are saying, that now to protect health workers, we need to advocate that the number of health workers be increased so that they're able to, for instance, work in teams. You say this team is working this week, then they go home, rest, check, get their COVID test done, then another team comes. And if a team is taken out by COVID, they go to isolation or quarantine, then healthcare work continues. They also need to protect themselves with personal protective equipment. And there are 3 levels of personal protective equipment. There is the usual one, which when you're walking around or seeing, then you use the surgical mask. Then there's the next level where you need an eye shield, an N95 mask. Then there's the one where you're dealing directly with clients known to have COVID and you're wearing the hazmat suits. for you people as the general public to protect us. Then when you're in the public area, then you can always wear your cloth mask, because we've seen a reduction of transmission of droplets can help actually reduce. In my view, what will help us going forward is people having masks, because we actually need to go out, get some food for the family, and eventually life has to sort of continue. And with that in mind, then I think a mask would be the bare minimum. Washing hands with soap and water, and where you don't have sanitize, and generally advocating that the health workers be protected.
Right. So it's all about taking care of you who are in the front line. A mask is a must. Even Trump himself, he eventually had to wear a mask.
Finally.
You cannot with nature. You cannot fight with good science. If you want to stay alive, you've got to do the right thing.
True.
You've talked about comorbidity, hypertension. The patients who are suffering from hypertension, are they at high risk as well?
Yes. Hypertension is a comorbidity, so it's diseases that can cause heart failure, for instance, heart diseases and lung disease. All these can be tipped over by COVID-19, and therefore, and part of it is that we, as you see, the importance of keeping the other medical services running. For instance, diabetics need to have their medicines going, so that if should they get COVID, then they are well controlled, you see. So when it's not well controlled, then it becomes a problem. Then the COVID might cause more problems than if someone is well controlled.
So in closing, Dr. Simon, what is the way forward? We are 1 week into, another batch of days where we observe, and every day we're seeing cases in the hundreds. What is the way forward? What should we expect?
So everyone has to do their part in ensuring that all the measures that have been advised, they take. So the workplaces have to put in place the hand washing, ensure that everyone is wearing masks, for instance, if they are speaking and all. Back in the health sector, we want to fast track all the issues that we need to, and we want to propose to the government that they fast track the issue of ensuring the welfare of the healthcare workers, employing more, so that we can have the normal health services running, and also the COVID services running. We also want, my heart goes out to the children. This issue of pushing a whole year away, I think we need to be more imaginative as a government. We cannot depending, because the virus is here to stay. We must be more imaginative in seeing how we can pass learning to our children, even assuming that even this pandemic goes on for the next 2 years. So rather than saying, oh, we've cancelled years and all, I think they need to be more imaginative, see how they can put systems in place to protect the health of their children, and also see how they can transmit curricula and books through audio, TV, radio, and even you do not necessarily have to be on a Zoom. You can send material on a Google Cloud and send to the local teachers to teach. For me, I think the tragedy is with the children, and despite the COVID, we actually need to sit down as a country and actually see how education can be delivered. If it was me, I would pass all the children, let them go to university. Sending children away and telling them that, oh, a year is lost, personally, I don't think is the right thing. Although still keeping them at home per se, for now, when the pandemic was there, was the right thing. But it was a time to improve all the facilities, also improve the learning modality, and it's really a time to reflect on what the point of education is in this country. And for me, that is the next big thing. And I think we need to have that conversation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Simon. I wish you all the very best. It's always great to catch up with you. We'll stay in touch. We'll stay talking. In case of anything, the door always remains open. Asante sana. Again, our condolences for your loss as a medical fraternity. But we as a people are going to do our very best to keep us safe, to keep you safe, and to stay sane while we're here. Thank you so much, Doc. Asante. And thank you to you for watching this episode. If it has taught you something, please drop us a comment in the comment section below. Remember to subscribe and hit notifications. And then let's catch up next Monday and do it all over again. Until then, stay safe, stay sane, and live out loud in all that you do. Bye, Doctor.